Hello, you're watching Kel67 Gaming, and this is a video that I never planned to do, but did see someone else do it and decided it looked like a great idea. So this is going to be the 10 lowest ranked games we have in our collection based on Metacritic scores. So you may love or hate Metacritic. Obviously, it sometimes agrees with you, sometimes doesn't, disagrees with your thoughts on games that you do have. But it is interesting to go through it and see just what we have in the collection and how it scores, looking at the gaming community as a whole. And this is going to be the 10, according to the gaming community, worst games that we have in our collection. So obviously we start at 10, and the 10th worst game that we do have, we actually have twice. We have it on both the Xbox original and the PlayStation 2. It is Star Trek Shattered Universe with a Metacritic score of 41. I'll be honest with you, we do have two versions of this game. I haven't played either of them. I don't think Aiden's played either of them either. This is games that we picked up because obviously the Star Trek license, which is something that is, to say it's hit and miss, is leaning very heavily on the miss, I think. There have been some good Star Trek games, something like Bridge Commander, the VR game on PSVR, absolutely brilliant. This one doesn't look to be particularly brilliant. It's your standard Star Trek fare that you seem to get, where it's a battle simulation, strategic starship to starship thing. And yeah, it's not something that I've played either the PS2 or the original Xbox version of, but we do own them, so it gets a place on this list. In ninth position, a game that actually I've got quite a soft spot for a couple of reasons. It's a game on the Dreamcast, and obviously got to love the Dreamcast because brilliant console. But not only that, it's a licensed game from a organisation that no longer exists. It is ECW Anarchy Rules. This has currently a Metacritic rating of 38 on the Dreamcast, which I think is, I understand why it's got, I think it's low. This game is the third re-release of the same game, basically. Before this, there was Hardcore Revolution, and before that, WWF Attitude, and all three are exactly the same games, just reskinned with different characters and different arenas. But I absolutely loved ECW in the late 90s and played the shit out of this game, I'm not going to lie. I really put in a lot more time than most people have. I quite like the sort of Mortal Kombat Street Fighter style button combinations for moves, although looking at the likes of Fire Pro, I can see the appeal of the newer style of control system. But nevertheless, I did play lots of this game. Actually, originally not on the Dreamcast. The game that I played at them, or the system that I played it the most on, was the PS1. The Dreamcast version, though, has the lower Metacritic score, which quickly gets us to number 8. And at number 8, it'll probably not be a huge surprise to know that there's a Wii game that sneaks in here, because there was a hell of a lot of shovelware on the Wii. However, this one, I didn't mind. This is a one-on-one fighting game on the Wii. It's called Legend of the Dragon. I am not 100% sure on this, but I do believe that this is based on an anime, based on the art style and the convoluted backstory that goes with it. For a shovelware game, you wouldn't go to that much effort, I wouldn't have thought. I've played this. I've never actually played it one player, but I played it quite a bit when we first got it against Aiden, and actually quite a fun game when you're looking at it from the from the standpoint of a one-on-one fighter playing multiplayer. I think there's an awful lot that you can forgive games when it comes to having a good multiplayer. The single player can be as bad as you want, and you kind of let them away with it a bit. So that was number 8. The 7th worst game, according to Metacritic, that we have in the collection, we have it on the PS2, but it did come out for obviously all the systems of the day, and it is Pimp My Raid. I'm sure I'm not the only one in the early noughties that really loved watching Pimp My Raid. That's the Exhibit one. The one with Westwood, that was fucking awful. Don't ever watch that. But the one with Exhibit was really good. And actually, I quite like the game as it goes. It is a collection of mini games, and they're connected, or you access them through an open world city. So actually probably a little bit ahead of its time in concept, although they did go with mini games instead of flat out races all the time, which probably wasn't the best idea. But I quite like going around the city, doing all the mini games, getting the money to upgrade the cars and pimping those rides. So you do get to do all the, and I think most of it is the visual upgrades. That's the thing that makes the biggest difference in the game, because you're not trying to build a racer. It's all about what you can do visually to the car to upgrade it. So that was number 7. Number 6 is a game that I looked forward to for a long time before it was released, and finally did get it. I believe it was the digital only release on the PS3, and it is Amy. The concept of a survival horror game set in a world with an infectious disease, that's all very nice, and par for the course, we know what we're getting with that. We actually think that sounds like a good idea. It's where this one falls down a little bit is that it's just one long escort mission, and as gamers, we don't like escort missions. The person who decided to base a whole game on escort missions, absolutely 100%, no questions asked, deserves to get this Metacritic score of 33. Just not acceptable. But somebody did make it, and I remember getting a lot of coverage at the time, so maybe it done okay. But they never made a sequel. Once it was released, people kind of knew what they were getting. According to Metacritic, the 5th worst game that we have in the collection is a PS1 game, and it is really bad. It's Simpsons Wrestling. This seemed like a perfect game for me. Seemed like a perfect game for Aiden as well. We like The Simpsons, we like wrestling. What could go wrong? This dumpster fire of a game can go wrong. The movement is janky. The amount of moves available is none. it is just a horrible waste of the license. If they had done with this something along the lines of even a WWE 2K20, this would have had smash hit written all over it. But it didn't, and for that reason the Metacritic score is only 32. So we get in the top 4. And the fourth worst game that we have in our collection according to Metacritic, I would probably put it even lower than this, to be perfectly honest with you, is Kickoff Revival on the PS4. There can be absolutely no doubt that the original Kickoff games by Anko were influential. If we hadn't had them, we'd probably still be playing much worse games. But this reboot of the series it's no good. We actually have got the version, the boxed version, limited edition with the t-shirt. That t-shirt has never been worn and will never be worn because, oh my god, why would you want to be seen endorsing such a horrible game? This is probably the worst football game that there has ever been. Certainly the worst one that I've ever played, which actually is saying something because I've played Peter Shilton Handball Maradona. So that gives you some kind of idea of just how low this bar is set. I might even have put this dead last. But the Metacritic score for it is a astronomically high 31. Don't know how it done that. I think Dino Dini may have just spammed with 100 point votes over and over again, which dragged up the score that it should have got, which is somewhere between a 0 and a 0.1, in my opinion. Down to the top 3 then. The third worst game, according to Metacritic, that I have in my collection, or we have in our collection, I should say, is another PS1 game. This one is Kiss Pinball. This was a game that we picked up, not knowing anything about it. When Aidan was a little bit younger and I was trying to introduce him to proper music, that's proper music with guitars and bass and drums and what have you. The only band that really caught his attention, and I'm guessing it's only due to the face paint, was Kiss. We also love pinball machines and pinball games on PS4 and PS3, PS2. We've got those compilations of the real tables, and we kind of really got into those. So we got Kiss Pinball. I don't think it's horrible. The physics are a little bit wonky. The tables aren't brilliant, but it's a pinball game, and as a pinball game, it's entirely playable to a point. I mean, it's better than video pinball on the Atari 2600. Let's be fair about this. But Metacritic have scored this one as a 26. According to Metacritic, the second worst game that we have in our collection with a score of a lowly 23 is Fighter Within, the Xbox One game. Now, this isn't just an Xbox One game. This is an Xbox One Kinect game. There was one of these on the 360, but I might be wrong. I think it's called Fighters Uncaged. And it's the same kind of thing where you jump about your game room punching thin air, and this is like sort of the sequel to that, but done on the Xbox One. We picked it up within a week of release, and even at that time I think we got it for £5. So it's not like it was a AAA release, but it did get some play, mostly from Aidan. I have to say, he was much younger at the time, and he liked all the jumping about stuff. It's not a great game, but it is in the collection, and Metacritic agrees with me that it's not particularly great. So here we are, number 1, the absolute worst game that I have in, or we have in our collection. And certainly if you look around YouTube, it is a contender for worst game ever, although I'm not sure that it's quite that bad. It is pretty close though. And we have it for the PS3 with a score of only 13 on Metacritic. We have Right to Hell, Retribution, 1%. Oh my god, this game had so much potential, but they wasted it. The concept of the game's pretty good. That a large open world where you're part of a biker gang and you're fighting to avenge the death of your father. The whole thing. The premise is brilliant. The execution is absolutely atrocious. The game is filled with bugs, which you fall through the ground to avoid, which is completely game breaking. The voice acting on it is terrible. The driving sections when you're on the bike is not just repetitive, but controls really badly and very repetitive. It's like the same thing over and over again. The fighting mechanic is unresponsive, and the sex scenes are quite frankly, cringe-worthy. I mean, there would be anyway, but to do them badly, absolutely unacceptable. So while I may actually have put Kick-Off Revival as the absolute worst game that we own, according to Metacritic, with only 13 points, Right to Hell, Retribution, 1% is the actual worst game we own. I'd just like to shout out to Gull Payne, who also did the first video of this one, where he listed his worst games according to Metacritic. If you haven't visited his channel, please go and do so. He puts out brilliant videos all the time. But that's it for me for this time. If you haven't already, please do leave a like, a share and a subscribe on the video on the channel. And hopefully all this atrociousness hasn't put you off, and I'll see you in the next video.